Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Hello, welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. And I am so glad you're here today. We have a very important show. Well, they're all important. I probably say that before every single show. So it's getting old, I'm sure. But this one is definitely no exception. Our Commoncore Diva, Lynne Taylor, is here with us today to bring us another update about the craziness going on in our world. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Lynne, well, first of all, you shouldn't be. You should go check out Commoncore Diva yourself, her blog. You should check her out on Twitter and follow, because what Lynne does that few people are doing right now, in particular, are politicians who allegedly care about parental rights and choice and freedom and liberty and things like that, anything to hold off the leftist assault on our brains and our kids and our rights. Nobody's looking into what Lynne looks into. Lynne is always several steps ahead of most other researchers when it comes to K-12 education in America. And even I bet she would tell you that she doesn't necessarily feel like she's ahead because she's constantly playing catch up to the crazy people who are trying to control every aspect of our lives. They are the ones way out ahead of us. So we're constantly having to dig and find out what they're talking about over on the other side of the ocean, about how they're going to, have one world that functions as they see fit, including the United States of America. So today we're going to be talking about their latest project, which is RX Kids and universal basic income and what all that means. You haven't heard these terms yet, but you will remember if you watch this show that you heard it here and heard it from Lynne Taylor first. So if you are new to the channel, also please like, share, and consider subscribing so everyone can get this information and begin to push it out to other parents and educators and people who care so we can get the word out and hopefully stop the craziness in its tracks before it goes any further. With that said, please join me in welcoming Lynne Taylor. Hi, Lynne.
Hi, how are you today, Deb? Thank you so much for those kind words.
Well, the least I can say. I mean, whenever you send me things, say, hey, Deb, you have some time? We need to get some info to the folks. And I look at it, I'm almost afraid to open email. I'm not even kidding. Everyone listening, y'all need to know that she will send me, and she's like, here's all the material. Here's what you need. We're going to cover in the show. And I look and I'm like, open, because I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that I look at these things and I need to step away. It's not an exaggeration. I feel like I'm living in some kind of time warp where other adults roughly my age, maybe a little younger, but they're not all younger. They're not all little children or millennials.
Right.
Some of them are my age. That means they were educated around the same time I was. That means they grew up in this with the same things going on, and yet their worldview, their perception of the role of the individual, free will, civil rights is so dramatically different from my own.
Right.
And from that of about half the population of the United States of America, tragically not the world, but just the United States. And it's dwindling. I would say it's more like 40% of the United States of America, that it's quite terrifying because you're listening to adults say things about life and economics and reality. And then of course, children that, downstream from all that, that simply do not add up. It's literally like you've stepped into the headquarters of a really dangerous cult that doesn't know it's a cult. It's scary, right, Lynne?
Oh, it absolutely is. And talk about walking away. I mean, there are reasons why I just am always shaking my head or going, I can't believe this, or having to go outside and pull weeds or do something because it's just so infuriating. And people people need to understand, first of all, the left is not going to save you. The right is not going to save you. They're both on the same bird, and that bird is pointed at us with the middle finger, probably in gold at this point. But yeah, what we want to talk about today is RX Kids. And if you haven't heard about that, is a public-private partnership in Flint, Michigan. And what they want to do is use $15 million of a seed fund from the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation and other local funders and state leaders, as well as public health care providers, Deb, to give a one-time parental allowance for prenatal care to every single pregnant woman in Flint, Michigan. That price tag is $1,500. Now, once she gives birth to her infant, that infant will receive $500 every month for the first year. Every pregnant woman in one city and every child that results from the birth. We're talking massive amounts of money. And guess what? They're unleashing this on Valentine's Day because it's all about love.
Question, teacher.
Sure.
They're giving it to the woman. Is there any incentive at all for there to be a father in this picture to take responsibility for his seed? It's hard to be crude, but women don't impregnate themselves, generally speaking.
This is true, and no mention of dad was made in the webinar, Deb, except the fact that somebody has to take off work because, after all, someone has to take care of the children. They didn't qualify if it was mom or dad, okay? They just said, oh, yes, we know that the first year of raising a child is the toughest. And I'm sitting here going, really? It is? Okay, well, I'd like to see the research on that. I'm not going to argue since I have been through several first years with each child. Yes, it can be if everything is not in place. And even when it's not in place, Deb, that never stopped our parents, our grandparents, or those way back when from halting having babies. No town ever said, oh yeah, just because you're pregnant, let me give you this $1,500 allowance to use for your prenatal care. One of the things that struck me about this particular webinar is you've got the moderator, Dr. Robert Ross. He was from the entity called California Endowment, which is a feel good, think good policy organization, I do believe. Let's see here now. Dr. Ross was the California Endowment, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, was created in 1996 when Blue Cross and Blue Shield Insurance acquired health networks, WellPoint Health Networks of California. So we've got big insurance in on this, Deb. This was the moderator. He's the one who drove the conversation. Then we have Dr. Mona Hanna, and I'm going to spell her last name because it's hyphenated, Attisha. She is the point person for the RX Kids, but she was also the lead pediatrician in the Flint iron pipe water debacle and has been able to make all kinds of change, not only in Flint, but across the state of Michigan. Then we have let's see here. Then we have CS Mott Foundation. And then, oh, Lord, you're going to love this one, Dr. Luke Schaefer, who is the point person of Poverty Solutions as housed in the University of Michigan's social justice arm.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Because this is supposed to wipe out intergenerational poverty and prop up the well-being of the baby. Now, what they don't tell you, and one thing I want to know, is how many data points, how many parameters are mom and baby and possibly dad, because we don't know, how many hoops are they going to have to jump through, Deb, to stay in the good graces of all this public-private fascism.
I cannot imagine. But it doesn't even make sense anyway, because I mean, think of the assumptions they're making. They're going to
Right.
give $500 per kid to the mother. And my question is, to do what? In other words, what is the problem they're trying to solve? What are they alleging? What I was hearing watching this webinar is that this is their prescription. They even call it a prescription.
Oh,
That's why it's called
yes,
RX
yes.
for kids. So
Mm-hmm.
this is their prescription to get the kids in Flint, Michigan reading. So when they begin by talking about how important it is for kids to read by the end of third grade, no one would dispute that. They start with a premise that no one would dispute. Kids
Right.
should be reading well by the third grade. And if not, then there might be something organic going on. But there's really not a reason that the average kid can't learn by the end of third grade. And if they're going to stay in this one size fits all system, if you're not in the system, then there's no timeline on it. But if
Right.
you are, you're not going to be successful if you can't cross that finish line and you're reading proficiently, and something needs to happen to help you. But their prescription to make sure that happens, which is funny because I've never taken prescriptions to prevent things, except I guess, maybe blood pressure medication. But it's a kind of a weird thing to proactively go into every pregnant woman's belly, presumably with the prenatal care money, and say that this is how we're going to get the kids reading. Now, but then what they do is they go to research that says research shows that
Mm-hmm.
how they are fair in the womb and how the mother takes care of them and prenatal care and what she eats and so forth, that can impact how well they do in school, that there is a correlation there. Well, you know why? There's a thing they never want to talk about, because prenatal care and nutrition and so forth do contribute to IQ. That they do.
Right.
We know that. But the same people, if you turned around and used this phrase, IQ, they'd be like, oh no, we don't talk about IQ. It's like somehow, so I'm like, what exactly is being impacted then? If it's not the brain and it's not the intelligent quotient, then what exactly is it that the better prenatal care is facilitating? Because the baby's not learning anything else.
Oh,
Then when they come out, they're basically implying that $500 a month per child, right? As if it's going to stay. Money's fungible, y'all. I hope everybody understands that like if I have 3 kids, I got $1,500 coming a month. Supposedly for my kids, supposedly to be my universal basic income. Now, if I spend it to get my nails did or my hair or whatever, how are you going to know? Even if I spend it on food, but I then have extra money to go spend it on partying or doing something else, how well is my kid going to do? So what is it? You're not buying books. You're not giving them
well,
$1,500 and saying they have to hire a tutor or something like that. So it's money going into the void, and they're somehow drawing a straight line between that money and a third grader who can read, assuming that the only reason the kid can't read is no money, which we know is false.
well, absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you what, you can go to the library and check out a book for free and go
Right.
read it to your child. But here's the thing that unless you listen to the entire webinar, you're going to miss, and that is, first of all, this has nothing to do with how well mom and family do during that first year. This is more about incentivizing, first of all, getting pregnant, having
Of
a
course.
government come in, a public-private partnership come in and be your nanny and be your sugar daddy. And then I heard very smartly someone go, well, what happens if you don't live in Flint and you want to have this in your town?
You're
Well,
going to
move
move
to
to Flint,
Flint. Move to Flint. Don't go in one
which
of the
then
outlying
incentivizes the
communities.
other cities to do the same.
It absolutely, well, here's the thing. This is a flagship program that is going to be the model for the rest of the nation, because they are so gung-ho about this, and they've been able to get the Michigan state level government supporting this, that they're going to trot this out all across the nation. Now, one of the things that was brought up also in the webinar was how much of an economic boost this was going to give Flint, because after all, it's such a poor city. Well, I'm not sure that this is actually going to help, because you're right. How are you going to know if mom and dad are spending the money for the betterment of the baby and the quality of the family? Here's how. We have a data tracking for-profit business, I believe it is, who will be handling the funding. And everyone gets a preloaded debit card, Deb. Oh, guess what? You can be tracked with every purchase on that debit card.
Yeah, but I'm still stuck. I'm still stuck on where the heck's the money going to come from. I'm
Okay, let
still
me tell
stuck
you.
on
Let me
not.
let me
And I don't
tell
mean
you.
like in the literal sense of the different groups and whatever, but I'm just saying there's a finite amount of money and
Right.
productivity in the economy. And when you start pulling more and more out of it to just give to people, you shrink
Yep.
the economy. You reduce the ability of working people to work. You create a larger audience for this program because people will start to desperately need it just to be able to survive. And you basically make everyone a serf.
Absolutely, you do. And here's one of the things I'm trying to find the name of the entity that is going to be handling all the financial tracking and whatnot, but I don't seem to have that right this second. But this particular webinar that you're showing everyone is a one of a series that's called Funder to Funder, and you can find it on YouTube. I tell you what, this is just absolutely awful. But here's who's funding this. You want to know. Well, first of all, you have the $15 million from the Mott Foundation. And they said, look, RX kids, if you can fundraise 15 million, we'll match that. So that would be 30. Well, what happened was Mott came in, gave the 15 million. Whoever in the RX entity got out there and really beat the pavement because they have now raised 40 million. So they've surpassed the 15 million matching. But here's what they did. Okay. I'm going to read you the list of other people, but I've got a really big kicker for you. Okay. First of all, we have the Detroit Partnership Economic Mobility. We have the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Summer Works, which is a youth employment entity. The Detroit Community / Academic Urban Research. Then you also have tied to Dr. Schaefer, you have the National Science Foundation, Bill Gates, the U.S. Census, Oberlin College, and the University of Chicago. Now, where's the biggest amount of money coming from? They're called TANF funds, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And this is something that every single state, DC, and every territory gets. This is also one of those funding streams that the Every Student Succeeds Act said, oh, yes, we're going to throw this into the mix so that we can make sure that school is a kinder, safer, more gentle place for Johnny and Susie and all the garbage that's going on. So they've leveraged. And what is leverage? Leverage in physics is that we cause something to move, right? In the political scheme, leverage is nothing short than manipulation. So somehow, some way, and this is where Dr. Schaefer is key because he has been key in helping get tax laws nationwide changed through the early childhood tax credit that's on our IRS form, and they're trying to make that universal. So he's like, oh, sure, let me go in here and I'll show you how to manipulate the TANF funds. Because their reasoning is, well, Deb, we're already got the government throwing in this many millions of dollars. And to eradicate poverty, we would need billions. So if we take this little bit over here that's in the millions, we're somehow going to make billions and that problem totally disappear. Oh, really? I'd love to see that math.
I thought I would just throw this up on the screen too,
Sure.
about the kinder and the gentler schools that they're supposed to have in Flint.
Oh, yes.
Most of the audience, I'm sure, if they spend even 5 minutes on social media in the last week, saw the charming video right here of this charming individual.
Awful.
Yeah, she just decided that this girl right here, charming, and here it goes, bam, and there it is, the kinder, gentler schools. That is in Flint, Michigan, where this is going right now. I just have to ask Lynne,
Yes, yes.
and maybe the audience as well, how universal basic income would have made all the difference in this child's life. That had taking money from people who actually went out and produced value and earned it and then were taxed to, essentially punished for being responsible and productive.
Mm-hmm.
How it is that taking that money and giving it to that child's parent, and I don't want to cast aspersions. Maybe it's a perfectly nice person. I don't know. And I'm going to say mother, because remember, the universal basic income is going to go to the mother. They're not even talking about dads at this point. Apparently, they don't exist. Everyone is just immaculately conceived in Flint, Michigan.
Right.
And that would have prevented this. But the good news is this child is facing felony charges. So, as it should be. So is this the new
Right.
school to prison pipeline, Lynn? We pay people to be
You
pregnant
know,
and give birth to
that
children.
is that's an excellent question. And you know what? I really, really do
Cradle
not
to
know the
sell.
answers. Yep, there
Cradle
we
to sell.
go.
We're going to take people who have demonstrated zero ability to support themselves, never mind a baby, and we're going to give them a bunch of money, and somehow that's going to make them great parents. And this from the same people who tell good parents who are responsible, have jobs, show up to school board meetings, write letters because they can write, have computers because they can afford internet, etc. And they tell us that we're terrible, horrible, negligent, abusive parents because of all the questions and the criticisms we have of the public schools. We're somehow bad guys, but these people are pure as the driven snow, aren't
Oh,
they?
well, let me tell you, they'll say that this is a flagship program, but I went and I did some digging because there were several mentions to universal basic income in this particular webinar towards the end. And I want people to think about the education savings accounts. That is a form of universal basic income that no one
Absolutely
wants
it
to
is.
acknowledge. And
That's
they're sitting
exactly what
here
it is.
going, oh, this is going to give me so much choice and so much freedom. And no, 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 no. Because let's remember, the more subsidized your government makes you, the more controlled that you absolutely are. But I wanted to point out that there are other universal basic income programs out there, quite a few. The ones that go after the moms and the babies, you ready? San Francisco, California is called the Abundant Birth Project. Lynn and Roxbury, Massachusetts, known as the Family Health Project. Jackson, Mississippi, the Magnolia Mothers Trust. New York City and Rochester, New York, the Bridge Project. Now, Jackson, Mississippi is the one who's been experimenting with this the longest. They are in their third cohort, Deb.
How's that working out for them? How's
Go
that
look
working
at
out in Jackson, Mississippi?
go, yeah.
Has the economy improved there? Has crime improved there? Has anything improved there? Moreover, I gotta say, as
Yeah.
a double X carrier, okay, as a female, as a woman, I am insulted beyond belief on behalf of women.
Yeah.
That anybody out there who wants to tell me that, well, but women, oh, I'm sorry. I was under the impression women could do anything. I was under the impression, even from some of y'all, women don't even need men. I was under the impression that we could, go out there, chart our own course, and we should be able to, and we should have equal rights and be at equal pay. And what equal pay? You are taking money out of some man's and probably woman's pocket so you can have a baby and not have to go to work. That seems about as anti-feminist as you're going to get. And
Yeah.
that's just addressing the feminists. Now
Right.
let's talk about the people who want to say, on the right side of the fence, who want to talk about, ESAs. I love that you brought that up. No, we paid into it. Oh, really? Did you?
Oh,
Do the math.
BS.
Do the math. I know what my taxes are. Let's just look at me. I'm middle class. I'm actually like in the top side of middle class if you really look at household income. So top side of middle class. I live in North Carolina, in Charlotte, pretty big city. Taxes are considered to be fairly high for the Southeast here. And for my household, where I currently, let's say all three of my kids were here. Let's say all three of my kids still needed to, go to school. Actually,
Yeah.
two of them are still in high school. We pay about in school to just school taxes, pulling out just the school taxes, about $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now if I went to get an ESA in, let's say they adopted the Arizona program, let's say we
Oh, which is a
copycatted
train
it.
wreck. You talk about people
But
abusing the money for
right,
go buying what
well,
they want. It's happened.
and the Arizona has a lower median income than, or at least in most cities there, than here. Look at Phoenix, look at Tucson. Okay, Charlotte has a higher median income. So here, let's say I took $7,800. I think is that what it is, about $7,800 per kid. Let's say
Mhm.
I took that $7,800 that they claim is not needs based. It's not needs evaluated. You just get $7,800 because that's like the highest in the nation. It's close to what they spend per capita at 13 or 14 grand. If I took that for my 3 kids, that plus I already have a decent income, and then said I'm a homeschool, that's UBI, guys. That's not my
Yeah.
money. That's not my money. That's paid because I don't spend anything near that to homeschool
Oh,
my children. I don't
I
even
did.
spend that. I don't even spend half of that to homeschool my children. So if I took that, they're assuming you're going to go to big, fancy private school, but there aren't enough fancy private schools that cost $23,000, or even parochial school at 12 or 12 grand a year in the nation to house all these kids. But they're not going to tell you can't have it. So yes, it's not your money. Stop saying it's your money. It's not your money. If it were your money, then the plan would be, we won't take your money. Check a box, and we will not charge you the school tax off your property tax. We'll just do the
Right.
garbage and the sewer and this and
And we're
that.
not offered
And
that.
there you go. There's your 4 grand. You don't have to spend it. And you know what? I'd be happier in a pig, and you know what? Because I
Yeah.
don't want them having my money paying for their garbage. But most people wouldn't be. It's not enough. I want more. Well, guess
Well, it's
what?
because
You
it's the
didn't pay
cons.
more.
Yeah, it's the concept though of free money, and look at how many apps are out there.
Mhm.
Play a game, get paid. I mean, I have seen I don't know how many ads for those that sort of thing. It's like, oh, I couldn't afford my rent, and you have these people going, I couldn't afford my rent, I couldn't feed my family, I played this game, and within a month I made $100,000. And what is this teaching? It's teaching that we don't have to work because someone out there is going to give us something for free. Free is not free. It costs someone something somewhere. Now, I want to also point out, in full running form, and this is universal basic income for everyone, regardless of if you have children or not, the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration. This is in California. And oh, what, Deb? Guess what? There's a bonus if mental health is involved. Okay. We have Harris County, Texas. Oh, so Republican. They used their American Rescue Plan money to help fund this, as have some of these other cities as well. It's atrocious how many have used that supposed COVID relief for something like this. All right, I've already mentioned the Massachusetts, but we have Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they're partners with the University of Michigan, who is helping pull a lot of this stuff off. Now, their intention, again, is always to address inequality and poverty, because it has to go in with the Sustainable Development Goal,
Of
after all,
course.
of number one, let's alleviate poverty. But if you look at how universal basic income even is factored into the success of the Sustainable Development Goals, and you've already brought it up, and that is you'll be more managed. You're not going to have a job. You're going to have to sign up for the government to take care of every stinking thing. And Mark Tucker helped perfect that plan when he left America and went to Estonia, because it was the same size as Maryland, and perfected the cradle to grave government nanny statitis, brought it back to America, trotted out Maryland as the poster state for, yes, this is why we need to do this. And now we have Michigan going, oh, we're so excited and we're so hopeful because this is just going to make such a big difference. And it's just going to make everybody's life so much better. It's incredible, Deb.
Like I said, it is so painful to me that people don't understand basic economics, even if we
Right.
can't get to them philosophically, to understand that nothing's free, that it's wrong and immoral and
Mm-hmm.
unethical to even want everything for free. That's just not, that's not in any way. People say, well, it's a Christian way to be. No, it isn't. It is not. I'm not even a Christian, and I've read my Bible, and I know that there is nothing in there that says that human beings are born on this planet with that God wants you to be idle, that God wants you to just have everything. Remember the Garden of
No,
Eden? We kind of
he
screwed
wanted
up
us to
there.
work, and he also
Yeah.
told us. He also said, you're going to have poverty. There are going to be a lot of people in poverty, but there's also going to be a lot of people in wealth. And the solution was not government; it was the church. It was the people pulling together.
Right.
But
But
I
it
did in
wasn't
my
even pulling
notes,
together to give people stuff. It was pulling
right?
together to create
To
opportunities.
Yeah,
The only people you were
absolutely,
supposed to give to were the truly helpless, the elderly,
right.
the people who can't work anymore. Parents are supposed to take care of children. People say, but children can't work. And I'm like, that is why they have parents. And only if their parents are dead or the child has been abandoned do we not hold their parents accountable. We used to understand this in this country. We used to shame the living daylights
Oh
out of
yeah,
indigent parents.
it was embarrassing if you had to do that. But I did find the name of the international organization who will be handling the funds for RX Kids. It's called Give Directly. It's a cash transfer entity that is online totally. It started in Africa and Kenya and has been used in America for other similar schemes like this. I also wanted to point out that I have a lot of notes, but this group behind RX Kids is currently working to write a playbook on how to manipulate TANF to be used across the nation.
Well, it's also important for people to understand, isn't it? When we talk about
Mm-hmm.
SDG or sustainable development, like we have this
Right,
link here, sustainable welfare, how do universal basic income and universal basic services compare?
right.
Understand that when they say sustainable welfare, they mean sustaining the program.
Yeah,
They're not remotely interested in sustaining your life. They're not
right.
remotely interested in you having a better life. That's just the shiny wrapping paper they wrap this pile of dog turd in,
Yep.
because what they're mostly concerned about is keeping the welfare state growing and going, because that is the matrix you will be plugged into so they can
Mm-hmm.
achieve the rest of the SDG goals. And again,
Right.
eradicating poverty just means the perception of poverty. If everyone's equally poor, then no one is living
Well,
in poverty.
that's the goal. That's the snow job. You have this altruistic, oh yay, nobody's going to be poor, but they don't understand that the real truth is everyone will be. Now, as far as
Right.
the data points and the parameters that are going to be used for these families, Deb, I also found those notes. Number
Yes.
one is data. Number two, health visits. Well, is this health care under my choice, or is this forced health care? And what if I disagree with the doctor? What happens then? Lots and lots of surveys, lots of assessments that will be happening to everyone who is in the household. Then they're going to take these surveys and assessments, Deb, and they're going to compare them to other towns nearby, but are not in this program, to see, oh, hey, are our economics working out or are they not? It'll also go into impact of a social contract, because that's what this is. Universal basic income is a social contract. So what does a contract mean? Someone somewhere has to be signing something and agreeing with two different parties or more than two different parties. Of course, economic development, especially using the Federal Reserve's tracking mechanism. And finally, how is your family doing in its relationship? And how well are they communicating and being a good member of their community? So they're going to get you in with
Mhm.
the cash. They're going to hook you in with all these other services. And RX Kids, in its experimentation, Deb, will last 5 years. You take a child, the first 5 years, the best place for them is with mom and dad in the home, not
A
at
mom and dad who
daycare.
aren't looking to their to for the government to be
Right,
their sugar daddy.
right,
What
exactly.
kind of
Not
lesson is
in
that for the child?
exactly, because we learn those first 5 years. You learn more about bonding with the people who are going to nurture you the most, or you should, but no, in this system, you're being a ward of the state. You absolutely are. I've got so many notes. We're going to run out of time. I just wanted to point out that it's starting in Flint. It's not going to remain in Flint. It's going to be universally applied across the town. So there's another nod to the universal basic income as well. They're going to take this practice and turn it into policy. But I want to point out one thing that I've learned in my research. Policy is not law. It is an interpretation of the law. So what does the law say? What does the state constitution allow? And what does the U.S. Constitution allow? I realize in the scheme of the UN, that's not going to make a hill of beans to anybody. But until they take it away from us, those are the things we need to be standing on. We also need to understand that the Department of Health and Human Services received the biggest power increase under the Every Student Succeeds Act for precisely this kind of overreach, not into just your school, but into your family. Because if the government doesn't like the way you're being a family and doesn't like the way that you parent, by God, they're going to do one thing, and that is micromanage you to no end.
It's really quite terrifying. And like I said, they're starting with people at the bottom because the
Mm-hmm.
appeal is obviously there. These are people who don't have things. And the appeal is there on both fronts. The appeal is there for the people who are going to be handed the money, so they're not suspicious. They just
Mm-hmm.
want it. And they also, again, and people don't want to accept that a sizable percentage of people who are on that bottom rung and willing to
Mm-hmm.
go get pregnant and have a baby, even if they don't have somebody to take care of it or they can't take care of it themselves. Those are people who don't make great choices to start with. They don't understand economics. These are the people
Right.
standing around Gavin Newsom the other day cheering a $20 minimum wage that's about to make them unemployed. But
Oh,
it's also the
wow.
top, the people at the tippy
Oh, yeah.
top
Mm-hmm.
who are needing desperately to feel better about themselves. They're absolutely guilt ridden because they were raised in this society that tells them, oh, you're an evil person because you're rich. You're an evil person because you have everything you need. You can meet your basic needs, and that somehow makes you owing to everybody else. So this, assuages their guilt, makes them feel like a savior, makes them feel like
Mm-hmm.
they're doing something good. And the people at the bottom are like, give me some. Where's my government cheese? And the
Oh,
people who
yeah.
are going to, and then the rest of us are going to get sucked in to it. And eventually that top group's going to be really, really tiny. And just those people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and all of them, that's what they want. And the group at the bottom plugged into the matrix is going to be massive. And that's exactly what they want. We
It
all need to be the
absolutely.
same, except for
Yep.
them. It's just a long way around to get to the same place that the communists got to in Russia, Soviet Union, and Eastern Europe, the same place that Mao got to in China. And it's probably going to take us another 50 years and piles of bodies to figure out this was a really dumb idea. They're just going about it more slowly, as if to say, like, we'll do the same stuff they did, but if we do it really, really slowly and we hide it and we disguise it and we call it
Mm-hmm.
different things, we name it different things, it'll work better. That's what they meant by it wasn't really tried. They just called it by its proper name, and that's why it
Right.
failed.
Right. Well,
No,
let's apply this to the student loan debacle. Oh, you've got all kinds of people going, oh, yes, my loan's being forgiven. No, it's not. You and I have to pay that. Someone
that's
else
right.
has to pay that.
It's just
And
being
they're sitting here
redistributed.
going, they're now saying, well, if we forgave you the let's say $200,000, guess what? That's going to show up on somebody's tax return, and then they're going to be taxed. This is going to be considered their income. And so while they're sitting there thinking, oh, goody, I just had all this money uh, taken off my credit score. Well, guess what? It just got thrown back on the income side. And guess who has to pay taxes on that? And where are they going to get the tax money from? Because this is part of the danger with the universal basic income as well. It will so monkey with our current tax codes. And
Yep,
they're already gunning to gut the IRS as far as wage based taxes, because after all,
that's
universal
right.
basic income just makes so much more sense.
Oh, doesn't it though? Doesn't it? I did want to touch on, since the title we have here is It's Hidden Cost of
Yes,
Childhood. And some of it is implied by what we're saying,
right.
but I want to speak to something very, very specific and also ironic. When I
Okay.
was in graduate school at University of Pennsylvania, we were made to read, in addition to Paulo Freire, we were made to read this book. Chicago University Press, Truly Disadvantaged by William Julius Wilson.
Mhm.
Now, in this book, there are many points made in this book, and some of which are just observations of reality that are worth noting. I don't necessarily agree with policy prescriptions, but the observation of what the impact on children, the hidden costs on children of
Mhm.
being what he called disadvantaged. I don't know what we would call them today, marginalized, whatever. But
Left
this is
behind is
most.
what the
This
popular
is
term is. Yeah.
right. This is mostly about what they called the underclass. We might call it today, the poor, whatever. But it wasn't race-based per se. It was more about urban poor. Okay,
Okay.
specifically urban poor. And one of the points that stands out in the context of this conversation is that in a household where no one works, which with UBI you could easily have, in a household where no, especially if they're in assisted house, if they're in government housing
Right.
and they have a SNAP card. So now they've got all the things, and they've got Medicaid, and they've got all this. So they basically do not work at all,
Mhm.
or they don't go to a job. They're sitting home playing a game for money and, or working off book, doing hair or nails or whatever. But the point is, children born in that environment with nobody in the house who gets up in the morning and goes to a job, or gets up in the morning and is on a schedule that aligns with reality. Like, I've got to go join the world and be productive. Even in my home
Right.
where I'm homeschooling and I am technically unemployed or self-employed, if you will, I work at tutoring, doing different things. I get up at 6:30 in the morning. I make my coffee. I start my day. I figure out what I'm doing that day. I talk to people like you. So I have a schedule that pretty
Right.
much mirrors the productive universe. So the message to these small children is that time is kind of like very flowy. And when they go to school, as most of them will have to go to school, these parents aren't homeschooling. So most of them are going to be sent into a public school while mom is still getting paid and doing nothing. Going from an environment with no alarm clocks, nobody's getting up, nobody's going anywhere. People stay up till all hours of the night because they can. Lord knows what they're drinking, smoking, eating, whatever, because they can. They don't have to take a drug test. Nothing's going to happen. The kid shows up at school with absolutely no sense of the passage of time, no sense of ability to function in such a regimented environment. Like school, let's face it, even people like me who live in the land of reality where I wake up at 6 in the morning and go to bed at 10 at night. Um, even even I think school is like super regimented and factory like,
Right.
but take a kid from that chaos where nobody has to work and stick them in a school, and you think it's going to improve their ability to read, it is going to create what I would call time management disadvantage, emotional regulation disadvantage. So then what happens? They go
Oh,
into
the
the
social and
school,
emotional learning
and
comes
this,
in.
you were ahead of me like always, Lynn.
Yep.
And they show up and they make perfect candidates for those high ACE score supports of tier 2 and above. So
Yep.
instead of coming in at tier 1, this kid will already be designated recipient of universal basic income. It'll be there in all their paperwork and all their data. They'll know everything their mom ate, everything their mom did at the doctor's office from before they were even born. It's in the same database. They'll come in with an ACE score higher than everybody else. They'll be immediately given tier 2 supports, no doubt. They'll be on the lookout for mental health so they can give them some more money. And that kid, if I had to predict, is going to be throwing chairs at teachers' heads by third grade. Not reading by third grade. Now you might say, Dad, that's such a dire prediction.
But it's
Yes,
not far
but
off. It is absolutely
no.
not far off
And the
because,
incentives align. The
well, it's
incentives align.
they do. But here's the other side of the SEL. It's not just the supposed therapy, the cost of the medications. So
Oh,
big pharma and big insurance. And who was one of the big insurance entities that I named? Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Come on. We know big pharma, big business, big corporation, big fascism, UN, it's all in to
somewhere,
destroy the family.
somewhere in hell, Mussolini and Hitler and Mao, for that matter, are sitting there saying, damn,
High five and yeah.
if only we'd had big data, if only we'd had technology, if only we'd had television and the internet, because we could have gone slower, you guys, with fewer bullets, and we'd rule the world right now.
Well, you
That's
know
what they're
what?
saying.
I understand, but guess what? One of the big data rapers, what entity? One of the big data rapers, and that's how I classify them. Is I mean no disrespect to anyone who's been through that horrible thing, but if you look at the comparison between the physical and this cyber crap, It's just as egregious. It's just as assaulting.
You're not
But
consenting.
here's the thing. IBM helped Hitler and the
Yes,
Nazis.
100%.
And here we have now IBM, under whatever stupid name it's been rebranded, if it's been
That's
rebranded,
right.
going, oh, we don't do anything harmful with your data, but we're going to data mine you to no end.
It's really incredible. So the what would you say then to the audience are, like, if you had to list them off, the hidden costs to childhood of UBI?
I would say their heart and their soul, which are absolutely priceless. So you really can't put a price tag on it, Deb. But if you did, I would have to say it would have to be probably in the trillions, because you would do anything you could to protect your children. I know I would. I know several people who absolutely would. We would no more throw them to the wolves, but yet we're going to go out there and be bamboozled by thousands of dollars to sacrifice a child who's worth trillions and billions of dollars, uh, if nothing else, in emotional value. So to me, it's more about the cost is more emotional, it's stability than it is uh, paycheck.
Right. And to those who would say people don't have children just for the money, what planet are
Well,
you
they're
living on?
fixing to
Happens every
now.
day. No, it already
Oh,
that
I
is
know.
delusional.
Oh,
There are
I
statistics
know.
that show that. There are people who willingly admit it. They call the kids,
Yeah.
paydays. So it's that's ridiculous. Then, but I really also want to linger on the children of the middle class who are, and
Okay.
even the poor, those who are saying, "Give me that ESA, give me that ESA." Y'all, this is how they are roping you into dependency. I wish I
Mm-hmm.
could help people see that. I really wish that people didn't see me as being anti. They're like, "Well, what's your solution? And don't you want people to have choice?" And like, this isn't a choice.
No,
They're not.
choice
They're.
died when every Student Succeeds Act
It's
said
an illusion.
everything had to be the same.
And that doesn't
Okay.
discount the fact, I want to say, this doesn't discount the fact that, for example, Ian Rose charter schools, by all accounts, are wonderful. There are some charter schools out there that are doing great things in comparison to the regular public schools. I don't discount that. I don't discount that their students are probably getting an excellent education in those buildings. And they are, to their credit, in most places that they're located, raising a lot of their own funds. So they're only partially publicly supported. And I wish they were more of them. I wish Ian Rowe could open, thousands of schools and run them exactly that way, and have people therefore compete with the public schools so that people could afford to pay for them. But my problem is not, I'm not saying there aren't good private schools here and there, or there aren't good charter schools. What I'm saying is your payment mechanism, your
Yeah.
funding scheme of calling it school choice is a Trojan horse. I want you to be able to choose to send your kids to Ian's school. And I would love for there to be more charters allowed. It's absurd that we have compulsory government monopoly. It's disgusting. But that's a completely separate conversation for how you'll pay for that. My solution to paying for it is let you keep your damn money in the first place and defund the
Yeah.
government. Sending it
Absolutely.
off to the government and allowing them to continue to be the middleman is allowing them to control you just by different means. You're not
It
changing things. You're
absolutely is.
moving. It's a shell game. You're just moving the
It,
ball.
it it absolutely is. And I wanted to point out one thing in my notes. I wrote an alternate name for the universal basic income, and it's called GBI, or guaranteed basic income. So if someone says, "Oh, well, I've not heard of UBI. How bad could it be?" "Oh, but hey, have you heard of this GBI?" "Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread." It's the same thing. It's the
Right.
same thing.
Well, there is
And
a difference in one respect that's
right.
very telling. And that is,
Okay.
universal means universal for
Means
everyone.
everybody. Yep.
Guaranteed basic income can be doled out according to whichever demographic the
Yep.
politicians in question want to dole it out to. So they will be used based on the benefit they derive politically from
Mm-hmm.
doling out the program. They really don't care. They just want to roll it out. Now, not every state, not every locality is going to approve of universal basic income for a wide
But they'll
variety of
go with
reasons.
guaranteed. Yeah.
Sure, especially when you say it's for just pregnant women and
Oh,
we're
oh, oh,
just so
oh, oh,
helpless.
but this
Helpless, Lynne.
particular this particular policy document that I've got, and I'm in the process of writing all of this stuff up. So I will have an article that'll be a complement to this particular interview. I will make sure that I get
Right.
it to you. But one of the things that I saw about this particular policy change was we're doing it in the name of, oh, I hope you're ready for this,
Oh, go.
racial social justice.
Everybody, and I mean like everybody needs to go out and get Thomas Sowell's new book. And you need, and most people watching this show right now are probably
Mhm.
already in agreement, and they'll just say, yeah, and water is wet, that nothing in that book is going to be news to you. Perhaps not. But what I will tell you is this: there are details in that book that help you make your case to other people who are on the fence about what Lynne just said. There is, first of all, no such thing as racial justice. There's justice or there's not. Justice just is. There's no kinds of justice. Okay. And when you talk about racial justice, you are implying that there's a racial injustice, which makes certain people perpetrators and guilty. And we all know where that leads. You've got to understand how a completely, like, the depth of the lunacy of that statement. And that's what Thomas Sowell does such a great job of, is explaining
Right.
that in detail.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And, that again goes back to that UN Sustainable Development Goal garbage, because that's where a lot of the language is coming from. Social justice, because again, we've just been so unkind to everyone and so uh, awful that we have to have an international group who is rooted in pure satanic mess come up and say, oh, yes, this is how we're going to run the world. And oh, yeah, we're going to run you out of it on the way.
Exactly. Exactly. So, all right. So, what should we do? I'm going to put the links to all the things, including, you're writing an article about this, or you did write an
Yes.
article? Okay.
No, I'm in the process of
Okay.
writing that. And it's probably going to be fairly in depth, Deb, and it's going to have
Okay.
some more links that I did not send simply due to time
No
constraints
problem.
for today. But
Okay.
it's going to be well worth the read. So, first of all, get this information, start digesting it, then start talking about it with like minded people, even unlike minded people, because this is coming to absolutely destroy not only our way of living or learning, but just our way of even being a family.
Absolutely. Childhood will cease to be what we have ever known to be childhood.
Right.
So the hidden cost, as far as I'm concerned, is we are now one step away, and it's a very short step, from
Hmm.
government dorms.
Yeah.
So just be real careful with this. So all the links to everything that we sort of half showed you today, and I want you to be able to watch those videos. I apologize in advance. They are stomach turning in some cases if you understand economics. If you don't understand economics, I strongly encourage you to read Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics and also Knowledge and Decisions. These two books can help you understand about incentives, about markets, about where money goes when we just give it away. And, this is really, really important, because it's not just Lynne and Deb are mean, or Lynne and Deb don't care about poor people, or Lynne and Deb don't have another solution. I hate to break it to you. There is no solution. If somebody is poor, or somebody is poor and lands pregnant, the only proper solution is for that individual to go find a solution. There is no social solution that comes from the government top down. It always, without fail, 100% of the time creates problems for other people who were never involved in that decision to get pregnant, who were never involved in the decision to not go to work. All the decisions that led up to that moment where that person is in need are none of our business. And if we try to make it our business, it will become our problem, like all of our problems. And increase the likelihood that more people will make the same set of poor decisions in the future. So please inform yourselves. All those links will be down below. And when Lynne gets her article to me, that will be there as well.
Yeah.
You can find Lynne at
Com.
commoncorediva.com or
And I just
.com.
want, yeah, .com. And I just wanted to point out, if you want the real truth about how toxic school choice is, go to my website, click on
That
the
will be there
donate.
too.
Yep, click the donate button, scroll down, get the info kit, select however much you want. You'll get hard copies and online copies of every bit of evidence, not only that I have been able to pull together, but Charlotte Iserbeet had pulled together before she passed, about school choice will absolutely, especially those ESAs, will absolutely kill homeschooling and all private education, shut it down, rebrand it as public, and thus be a top down entity that we will never get rid of.
That's right. That is exactly right. And, do not let yourself be bullied. You're allowed to have questions. You're allowed to be skeptical. This, to the extent that this is your money, you have a right to it because it is tax dollars. But it's, like I said, it's not your money coming back to you. It's just you
Right.
do pay into this whole scheme. But to the extent that is your children and their future that will be dramatically impacted as far as how they'll be able to raise and educate their own children, your grandchildren and great
Right.
grandchildren.
Right.
And that you already see what's happening to the country because people have been educated differently
Mm-hmm.
already. What do you think it's going to be in 25 or 30 more years if you involve the government in the private sector even more when it comes to education? I'm sorry, I have yet to see in the history of the world a private situation, a private entity, a private institution that opened its doors to the government that was not corrupted by it. Never in the history
Right.
of mankind have I ever seen it. And I challenge you to show me. Seriously, I challenge you to show me one where it benefited, improved, or it even stayed the same level of quality. Take a
Yeah.
look at the universities, private, so-called private universities. They're not private anymore because of student loans. This is the same thing at K-12. So
Yeah.
please go read everything that Lynne has written. You will better understand it, certainly better than I could ever explain it to you. I'm sorry, Lynne. This is
I
exasperating.
know.
How do you do this? How do you do this?
Grin and bear it. You grin and you bear it, and you make sure you have some hobbies that get you outside in the sunshine,
Yeah,
where reality hits you, and you're not going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to go tell everybody this."
I know, I know. But we love you and we appreciate you.
Oh, thank
And
you so
I'm
much.
so grateful. All the links will be down below. And you know, I was gonna say, come back and tell me what's next, but I'm sitting like, come back sometime. Like I keep hoping there's nothing else, but there's
Oh,
always something
please,
else.
please trust me when I tell you, there would, when I first started researching, I never dreamed it would blossom into what it has. Okay. That's just God. But I've said, I don't know how many times, I'd like to go back to who I was before, where I
You
didn't
didn't
really
know
know
any of this.
anything and I was having fun, but I can't do that. I cannot in good conscience do that. So I guess until I get called to heaven, this is what I do. And I'd like to be wrong about something. And I hate how many times that I've been right.
Same.
But it is what it is. And,
Yeah,
it's because of folks like us that we can help others become just as educated, even more so than those who are supposed to be representing us.
exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank
And
you.
everybody, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel and go check out commoncorediva.com. And we will see you next time. Bye bye.